Well, hello and welcome to our weekend debate programme. Certainly different weather from last week. It's pretty dark and gloomy, but I hope we're going to be sparky and bright in here to talk about things that have been going on. And if there was, let's introduce yourselves and give details.
Eric Corkish, ex-member of Ramsey Commissioners and a campaigner for disabled rights on the Isle of Man.
And we'll definitely be talking about that.
Yeah.
Paul Quine, one of the two members of the House of Keys for the constituency of Douglas South.
Hello, I'm Joney Faragher and leader of the Manx Labour Party and steering group member for the Isle of Man Climate Change Coalition.
Lovely, and thanks. We've been 3 weeks trying to get you here. It's been off and on, but because I get told if we don't have enough women on the programme, so I try and do my best to balance it. But do you think it should actually matter these days? Should we balance people?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Definitely.
Right, well, let's start with talking about the press conference, because that's always a good place to start on the Thursday one. So did you all have a chance to see it?
I heard most of it.
Okay. Eric, what do you think then?
Well, as long as you stick to what they were saying, because I know there's people now you've seen in social media saying that the border should be open for everybody to come back over the Christmas period. And I don't think that's a good thing. I'm not convinced it's a good thing the students are coming over.
This is definitely polarising people. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, there's no standard operating procedure for this. This is what we've got to remember all through this. The way that things have developed has been very fluid, and I think the Chief Minister, in fairness to him, has played it really well. Him and David Ashford have been a credit to the island, and making the decision to remain at stage 4, certainly for the rest of the year, I think on balance is the right decision, given the current climate, particularly right on our doorstep. I mean, my niece is across in Liverpool at the moment. She's doing a teacher placement at a school in Birkenhead, and she'll be coming home on the 4th of December, and then having to undergo the sort of 2 weeks isolation. So we're lucky insofar as my mother and my sister are going to go and stay at a separate house where my niece ordinarily would live, so she has the house to herself in order to allow the family to try and function as best as possible. So I appreciate, though, for a lot of other people, it's going to be quite a challenging period.
As I say, people can't be moved on this one at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was listening to Annette Baker, the outgoing head of Ramsey Grammar's interview this morning, and I think she made a really valid point that there is an existing system in place for compassionate entry, and that we could utilise that in order, as a one-off really for this time of year, which we know is a very special time of year for families, that we could utilise the structure, which is very carefully monitored, and utilise that structure in order to allow, on a discretionary basis, certain people to kind of compassionate grounds to see their family, I suppose, really. And I think she made a very valid point. I could see where she was coming from.
I mean, the point also was raised that we don't know exactly how many people are wanting to come back. I mean, if it's a manageable amount of people, surely
exactly,
we should be able to do
because
something.
most of these people will be working people. They'll have to go into an isolation, so that automatically will reduce the amount of people who will be applying for that, who can actually have a 2-week isolation before they're allowed to actually see their family. So I would imagine that we're talking very small numbers here. We are allowing people to relocate to the island. Why are we not allowing our own residents, back? So I can see where people are coming from with that one, and I do think that it might benefit us to look into the whether the numbers would be feasible.
You get mail back on these sort of things? I mean,
dealt with several issues regarding such. Of obviously, right across to people now wanting to try and get their pets back to the islands. There's one of the constituents has just adopted a dog from Romania. So one of the strange ironies in this is, and it probably just shows the spirit of the Isle of Man in more adverse times, that a lot of the students are actually volunteering to bring pets back for individuals. So I suppose that's quite gratifying.
There has been comment about that, though, because you're not strictly isolating. If you're picking something up for somebody else, from somebody else, there's always a chance you can still be able to get virus.
And this whole thing about pets, anyway, the steam packet were doing it by their own goodwill almost, and that's now been withdrawn. But the government owns them. So I know this whole thing isn't about arm's length.
I think the Chief Minister made the point that it's a matter for the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company, for their management, because, as you say, I mean, it's an autonomous company, although it's under government ownership. It's certainly, you know, managed and structured within its own framework.
Do you think we've got any plan, though, to get out of this whole thing? Or do you think the vaccine is going to be the end game and that's it? We'll all be in lockdown until whatever date that's going to happen? I
think certainly this side of spring, personally speaking, Paul. And obviously, you know, these things, it can't be rushed. It's a worldwide pandemic. So we just have to take our place in the queue to get, you know, I think the Pfizer and the Oxford researched vaccines are over 90% successful. So I hope that this proves to be the case when it comes to be administered. But of course, it's a huge logistical exercise to do it. You know, to just to acquire the vaccine, to have it over here, to keep it at I think it's 70 degrees below freezing. So it's a very...
Well, that's one of them, isn't it? There's different ones.
One now that can just be kept in an ordinary fridge. It doesn't have to be at that.
But they've got the fridges ready, so I don't know if they've been buying these fridges, because that's the first one announced, wasn't it?
One of the things that's coming up in the English, where they allowing people out over Christmas to meet other people, and the figures they give is for every day they're allowed to bring other people in the house is going to add another 5 days onto the lockdowns that they have afterwards.
Okay, so I mean, what's that mean? Is that good or bad? I mean, in a day.
Well, it's
what do you think?
People will be locked down for longer, you know, just for the sake of having people in your house for Christmas.
But we're okay here, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, we are.
It's crazy.
Until the students come back.
But aren't they already back, most of them, do you think?
Some of them are back, yeah. But I think there will be some who just won't stick to the rules. And not only students, there's other people coming back. And, I mean, how many people have been jailed?
I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that we can trust the students to isolate. I really do feel like they're responsible people, and we shouldn't be tarring them with a brush and saying that they're not going to abide by the rules. Also, we're very close communities on the island. That's really worked in our favour over this pandemic, and that will work in our favour with this returning group of people as well. That they really wouldn't be able to get away with it, but I don't think they would have any intention of it.
I think the Isle government have handled it perfect, really. I just don't want it to be all thrown away just for a few days over Christmas.
It's a polarising issue, isn't it? I mean, I've had people speaking to me who feel that the borders should be open and we should be able to go about our business as we did prior to this. And of course, then there's other people with the polar view who say that the borders, I should say, should not be opened under any circumstance until the all clear is effectively sounded. So,
and a lot of it will be down to what's happening in our neighbouring countries, and obviously what's happening in the UK with regards to the virus is catastrophic, really.
Well, it's almost crisis management over there, isn't it? You know, there's going to be a lockdown, then it's going to be released over Christmas, and you can have a 3-family bubble, create that. So I mean, I don't think they've got any real coherent strategy over there. I think they're just trying to appease certain elements in the sort of more vocal.
But do we have a strategy over here? Because we ask these questions every week, and I'm always getting this. Well, not to me. It's we're looking at it or we're thinking about it, but you know, there's no sort of roadmap, is there?
It'll be interesting to see what the announcement about the TD is on Monday.
Well, let's talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even sure we were meant to talk about that, but it's gone into the media because I thought it said strict embargo. Don't mention anything until 12. We're going to have access, but we can't mention anything about it until 12 o'clock. I don't know yet. What do you think? What's in you? Because you're not privy, presumably, to the inner workings yet.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a big decision. It's a big call for the government to make. I would imagine, and again, like you say, I'm not privy to any information. This is purely what I would imagine will happen, is that they'll put the meeting back to later in the summer, which affords that extra 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 month period to ensure that, you know, if a virus is available and the virus is being administered, so we can allow people on
vaccine. Virus, yes.
Vaccine. I mean,
no, I asked that question anyway. I mean, that's what it seemed to me obvious. I can hear it happening in the Manx Grand Prix.
Yeah,
sort of. When you look at the dates for BSB and all in England, they've got dates for racing on the dates the TD should be on, which has never happened before.
Well, it has happened a few years ago. There used to be a there was to be a Sunday meeting.
The odd clash. Actually flew away, didn't he? Raced and then come back here. But the way they're talking there, and I think that they'll move it to Grand Prix week. But what's got to be thought about that is, in the TD, you've got practice until 9:30 at night, and the Grand Prix stops at 8 o'clock. So if that's what they intend doing, they're probably going to have more road closures in the daytimes for practice week.
Well, there's the logistics of having the marshals. I mean, I think it needs 580 marshals in order to run the event. There's the doctors, medical assistants, everything that goes with it. You know, usually that 2 weeks in June, or last week in May, first week in June, however it falls, allows people to have the time off to come over, and you know, a lot of people who marshal and assist are visitors. If it's left to ourselves to try and marshal the event, and we always run into that issue, particularly in the Grand Prix, where we don't have enough people available. So there's also that logistical issue. If we can't meet the marshalling criteria, then no matter what, the racing can't go ahead.
But I mean, does it make money? Is the question that we never can find the exact answer, because it depends how you
£10 million is what they reckon.
put it on. 10 million.
No, £10 million
makes
to benefit the Isle of Man.
Yeah, but of course it's such a weird thing to know exactly how to work that one out.
Yeah.
Do you want a TT? I mean, do you think it's a good thing to keep going with it?
Oh, without question. I think it's you know, it's exposure that the likes of which the Isle of Man could never realise usually. So it sort of puts us out across the world. But again, it's something that needs enhancing in years to come. We need to look at how we look to the future of racing, of the development of motorsport on the island. And personally speaking, and I've said this for a long, long time, I've written a paper regarding it, we need to look at the construction of a racing circuit. You know, because there's so much more in this.
That's been looked at from the word go. I can't remember.
Well, Jeff Dukes looked at it back in the early 70s, and unfortunately it wasn't taken up. So we kind of fell behind quite a bit in motorcycling terms. With, you know, the 500cc category sort of moved on, and when the Isle of Man lost its World Championship status in 1976. And then into the evolution of World Superbikes and MotoGP, and that's something that we should be looking at getting back on board with.
The Isle of Wight's talking about doing something, isn't it? Calling it almost a TT, but they probably can't use the name because that's a copyright issue.
Yeah,
but, you know,
they have spoke about it, but there hasn't been very much since. But I mean, a lot of that'll be down to the COVID one. That, you know, they won't be able to arrange anything themselves.
I mean, I would like to see it evolving in that, moving towards more of a sort of greener, more sustainable event. And I know we do have the electric bikes race as well, but I think that technology is moving so rapidly, and I'm not sure that the TT is keeping up with that.
Well, they stopped them now.
Well, it was going to happen, was it? Last year,
this year, there is no electric TT.
So that's a retrogressive step, really, isn't it? Which is not.
Because you can go out now and buy electric motorbikes. I was looking at them the other day on the internet, you know, and they are there for sale now. It's ridiculous prices, but the same as electric cars are ridiculous prices.
There was that issue about exporting the TT, of course. I thought about that one. Do you remember? There was going to be TTs all over the world. I
thought it was an excellent idea. Unfortunately, you know, for whatever reason, it just didn't come to pass. But I don't think it can't be resurrected. I've sort of done a lot of travelling out in the Far East, around Australia and that, and I think people out there, certainly places like Singapore, that run a Formula One car Grand Prix, which has, so they have all the infrastructure in place. I think if we were to try and approach them to sort of look at taking on a TT, a Singapore TT, for instance.
But the TT is a TT because it's run on roads, right? I mean, everywhere else, health and safety would never see allowed, would it?
Well, no. I mean, you've got the Dutch TT, which is part of the MotoGP series. So you know, that's run on a closed circuit at Assen. So,
but isn't that why the TT is so prestigious, though? Because it is run on an open road. Is that not? Is that not way?
That's what I'm thinking. It makes it so different.
No, I think that's a bit of a misconception. In all honesty, the big league, the heavy sponsorship, the blue chip sponsorship and the prestige Premier Division is MotoGP in motorcycle. And the TT is doing very well. It's punching its weight again. As I said earlier, it went through the doldrums, particularly in the sort of late 80s and early 90s, but it has resurrected itself, and that's down to sort of good promotion of the event by what today is the Department for Enterprise.
But a lot of them now, with the TT, the safety of people in the TT, you know, there's whole areas now where you can't go and watch. You can't go to Alpine to watch for one place. And, you know, it seems to get more and more each year.
And the grandstand getting all that sort of netting up for the behind the Scouts area. On that, I mean, well, you've got a view on the grandstand. Sorry, the scoreboard. You know.
Well, I worked on it when I was a child in the Cubs and the Scouts. Yeah, the North Board and the South Board.
What went on there?
So yeah, you started off as a runner behind the scoreboard with pushing the slates through for the Scouts to pin onto the scoreboard, so you could follow the progress of each ride, and then you went to work on the clocks, which are above on the top of the scoreboard, which
was that promotion down. Was it?
That was the sort of hierarchy.
Big time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've got very fond memories of being up there, but I think, you know, you move on, and people say, no, they used to always come down in winter anyway. You know, they were always taken down after the Grand Prix and stored away for the week, for the winter.
But it hasn't recently, has it?
No,
it's stuck up there for the last
20 years.
Was that long?
I think it maybe.
And things sort of rotted away.
Yeah, it's.
But what are they going to replace it with?
Well, nowadays, obviously everything's done by app and sort of updated through smartphone devices.
Well, I've had a thought on it that instead of spending millions of pounds, because there's only the people in the grandstand that see it anyway, and when they sell the seats, when you buy a seat for the grandstand, you're given an iPad and get everything on your iPad, and you can sit there on the stand. 500 iPads is going to be a lot cheaper than the millions they spend for some big new electric scoreboard.
People do it on the phones. I mean, the iPads or nothing. I mean, but then the whole circuit can be connected that way, couldn't it? And there's this whole thing about live TV. Of course, has never been cracked. I mean, how do you cover that live?
Logistically, it's an issue because there's so many weather delays. You know, I mean, the course is 37 3/4 miles long. You've got, sea level roads up to, to the road to the bungalow and up to Brandywell. So it's, trying to fill in the airtime if the race is postponed for whatever reason would be a logistical nightmare.
And any accidents, of course. Yeah, you have to have that issue about delays to the picture. So you could be at the grandstand watching it, but on the big screens you're going to put it in, it could be 10 seconds behind or something.
Well, nowadays, the stop the races, I suppose it is new health and safety. If a major accident happens somewhere, the race is stopped, red flagged, and then the riders go back and start again. Never used to happen like that. I mean, I marshalled for years, and sadly, I was at 3 where people didn't survive. But the race wasn't stopped.
That was then, but now it's a totally different picture, isn't it? Now?
1977 that was then. But now, you see, the other thing that's changed, if you look where the medical and the marshals will treat a rider on the road so that they stop the race because you can't obviously get past. In my day, you had a scoop stretcher, you put them on it and move them off the road and then do any medical stuff out of the way of the bike, so they didn't need to stop the race. But now that's not acceptable to just pick somebody up off the road, because if they've got a neck injury, you can paralyse them for life.
When people come over, I'm talking about when I was a journalist with Granada or BBC, and they saw it for the first time as journalists, they couldn't believe that the thing existed as a sport. But it was the fact that if someone did die or seriously injured, within half an hour, we'd moved on. Anywhere else, things get cancelled at that stage, don't they?
Yes, it's a dark side of racing, unfortunately. It's the cruelest sport of all. That so many good people, sadly pay the ultimate price for what they enjoy.
But they should be able to have free choice.
I fully agree with that. I feel as long as the people wanting to take the challenge, then the challenge should be available to them. If and they take it off their own volition. There's no like going back to the sort of the days in the early 70s when Agostini led the walkout by the top riders of the time. I mean, they were under contract to race over here at that time, and that no longer exists. So people are free to either race it or not, to make their own decision.
It's a bit of a selfish sport, really, because if you...
A selfish sport?
Yeah, if you look, there's a book of TD, MDP memorials, and it's well written, and the book, All Money Went to Charity. And when you look in there and you read through the amount of time somebody was killed and they had a 3-month-old daughter or a 5-year-old son, you know, and you're leaving. One in particular I was involved in, it was in 1977, and the fellow was killed, and he had a daughter aged 3 and a son aged 7, you know, and a wife, and he's gone. You know, no income coming into the house. It is selfish.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
I know that there was a sponsor over here that as soon as somebody was married and had a child, he wouldn't let them have his bikes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is, though, that's the person who they are, and we're, like Paul said, we're allowing them to have freedom of choice, and that I think the danger element is actually part of what draws people to the sport.
I think that's a massive part of it, isn't it?
It's got so much safer over the years now, with better marshalling. A lot of the accidents used to occur in the early morning practices, so obviously people fatigued, or the wildlife on the road, the sun was low in the sky, so there was a lot of more sort of contributing factors by eliminating that actual part of that risk. We've improved for safety record.
At the moment, though, there's quite a few cases waiting to go to court for compensation from spectators, and you've got the big one, Steve Mercer, who hit the car. The car was going the right way, they were going the wrong way, big of a mistake in however they did it, and that case is due to come up in court. And the ones that were injured on Bray Hill, there's a number of them taking them to court. And my understanding is there is no insurance on the TD. It gets paid by the government.
Okay. Well,
who would insure the TD?
Yeah. What I love about this programme is I have no intention of going to the TT this week, because next week probably we'll all know where we're standing, but it's great that we've done all sorts of things. And what we're doing this week, we're doing it in sections. We thought we'd have another different idea, so this one done. Join us and click on the next button for the next part.